So tell me, they gave you the job of editor of FinWeek. What is the major challenge that they've kind of briefed you, or the one that you're seeing for yourself?
Well, I mean, I think in my case, I was brought up, I'm one of those people who was brought up with the internet, radio, TV. You know, when there's a lot of coverage of markets, there's so much information out there. And this idea of trying to reinvigorate a print publication, it's an interesting challenge. I think people have got so much information when it comes to financial markets. Is there a place for print? I believe so.
Just going back a little bit, because obviously in the print environment there are the daily newspapers and variously the national newspapers as the Business Day here in South Africa, but then there are other newspapers in the independent stable that have quite a strong presence. In the weeklies, it's yourself, Financial Mail are the two stalwarts, but then there are some others. And then, as you say, there's been this plethora of sort of online stuff. There's the TV channel like the one we're on now. I mean, obviously, everything is getting converged and jumbled up. So I'm assuming you've got this team, this core of journalists who are working on a print publication, but there's an associated set of strategies that you're following as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to remember that FinWeek was part of is part of the Media 24 stable. We had
part of NASPAS.
Part of NASPAS. We had the Fin24 arrangement where we were aggregating a lot of international and market news through Fin24, which is obviously the biggest financial news portal in South Africa.
Yeah.
We've now stepped away from that relationship to try and rebuild the FinWeek brand, building our own online presence there. We've got some interesting developments coming up as well.
And speaking of that, the issue of paywalls then arises. So you've got this magazine which has historically had a subscription and been sold for a profit at the newsstands, and then you go online. How's that going to work?
Well, at the moment there's no paywall, but we've kind of taken the decision, an online financial news site, even with huge traffic volumes in South Africa, is competing against the likes of Bloomberg, CNBC's online presence, and there's a lot of international competitors very well geared to covering day-to-day market news. We've tried to take more of a community approach to it, dealing a lot more with the webinars around personal finance, market discussions, community, rather than simply trying to aggregate as much financial news as possible.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily want to be the one that has every single little kind of newswire story replicated or breaking news. You rather want to go for the stuff that's a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more commentary. And the community thing, you're talking about webinars, that's interesting. That's video-based, sort of instructive type things, as well as community forum type stuff?
Yeah, community forums talking about trading shares, the opportunity to follow your favorite FinWeek journalists. We get a lot of excitement around the likes of Marc Ashton, Victor Clark.
Yeah.
A lot of them have won many of the financial journalism awards. In fact, we won every major financial journalism award this year. People love to be able to follow their stock picks, so the opportunity to follow it via mobile, via the website. Personal finance tips being pushed to your mobile, that kind of thing, I think will get a reader interested in personal finance and investing.
Although, as you say, the community thing can be a bit of a double-edged sword. For better or for worse, online community forums can be a problem in terms of people going off beam and getting crazy down there, no?
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting challenge that we have had to deal with. I mean, you've seen many of these online sites where you have your commentary and it simply degrades itself, degenerates into a real trading of insults, and everybody has it. I think that there's a sophisticated financial audience in South Africa that doesn't want to be, or there's an audience in South Africa that wants to learn about their finances, manage their finances, and don't want to be dragged into those kind of debates and be pushed off a lot of these online presences.
Yeah. Go back to Fin24. So you're saying the businesses will be functionally separate. So Fin24 will do what it will do, and that'll be more. What do you understand their strategy?
They've got a lot around the data. Remember, they have the relationship with McGregor BFA. Right. They will serve out a lot of the data. They continue
charts, fin releases, that kind of thing.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we are dealing more with the stories that you'd see in a FinWeek, for instance. There'll be some building on some of the. Let's use Exemplar ShareMax as a story. We've followed that for almost 10 years now.
Right.
And being able to build discussions around content that we own.
But I'm excited and looking forward to the website, because I've battled to get articles written by friends like you, and then also Bruce Whitfield and some of the other guys that I like to follow what they've got to say. Those have been difficult to find up till now, unless you had a web-based subscription, or if you had an iPad and you were using Zinio. Just tell me about that for a moment.
Yeah, so Zinio is quite a nice arrangement. If you've got an iPad or a tablet device, you can basically get your FinWeek driven to the device on a week-by-week basis. Right. I think it's really nice. I mean, I'm not somebody who's going to go out to a shop and actively look for a magazine. If I don't see it where I expect to see it, I'm not going to make the decision to purchase it.
the Zinio thing is not an interactive web iPad presence. It's like a flat version of the document, right?
It can actually be. At the moment, it is just a flat version of it. Normal scroll through. But I mean, I've seen it. My wife uses it for the Marie Claire's, for instance, and you can be able to click on the clothing outfits, and it can tell you where you can get this.
So
there's an application.
And in fact, with regard to that, do you anticipate developing an iPad application for the publication in due course?
We do. We've got a couple of ideas around that. As say, we can do everything from money tips. Simon Dingle's got a very strong brand with his tech trends offering within the magazine. We've got some nice ideas that we're looking to execute there.
Because that does seem to be a new and emerging trend. I mean, there's the Daily Maverick, which is going live with that thing, on the iPad specifically. Business Day has got an iPad application, so it would seem as though the future of those people that really love magazines is probably on the tablet devices because they work particularly well in that environment.
Yeah, and I think just the accessibility of it. I mean, you can get into bed at 11 o'clock at night and decide what magazine do I want to read this week from anywhere in the world, and you can...
Don't have to have a wheelbarrow next to your bedside. Talking about the content, you talk about the Share Max thing. I mean, that's a story of a kind of an investment fraud or a problematic product which your journalists followed for years and pointed fingers at it and really went to town. That's the sort of real domain of investigative journalism. Do you foresee more of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges we've had in the last couple of years, we've had a couple of different editors come through. As of the last year, we had a very strong focus on stocks and shares, remembering that that's quite a niche environment in South Africa. I mean, I think the stat is that basically 2% of South Africans actually manage their own money. So, I mean, that immediately narrows down some of our readership base.
Yes.
There's a lot of interest in things like just basic savings. I mean, we have a 0% savings rate in the country. I mean, there's opportunities around savings, entrepreneurship. Less than 7% of South Africans are involved in entrepreneurship.
In fact, I know that's a particular interest of yours, is small business entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial promotion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of thoughts there. I mean, one, there's a lot of interest being thrown toward entrepreneurship in South Africa. You can't open a government documentation without something about supporting small businesses. A lot of interest in the IDC and what they're doing. So there's opportunities. I mean, to me, it all comes down to this issue of money. You've got people have money, whether it's invested in the stock market, invested in their house. It's something that's personal to them, and they want to learn how to take control of it.
Yeah. The Naspers context. I mean, people talk about the group Naspers got these exciting investments in Tencent in China, the DSTV asset. The print publications. I mean, Koos Becker is famous for wanting to only employ people under 35 to positions of authority because he says, guys, you're in that target category, have that kind of vision and energy. Is this an example of where he's kind of looking to energize the traditional print titles and make them part of a digital future? Yeah,
I mean, I think there's quite a lot of focus being put onto both magazines and newspapers. I mean, look at, an example, Daily Sun was, it's one of the few newspaper titles that's really taken off in South Africa in the last couple of years. It's gained some serious traction. Because of the limited access in terms of internet and mobile devices, this is still how people consume their news. So I think it is a case that the market is maturing now. How do we take that content and package it differently? I mean, I think in FinWeek's case, one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years is that we went from the old Financiers and Technique environment where it was, our reader was a lot older. They've now graduated. I mean, I think our average reader now is 32 years old, 60% black, and yet we're still perceived as an Afrikaans publication with old Naspers history. And I think what's happened along the way is that the publication has changed its readership and not necessarily its packaging.
Good. Well, that sounds fantastic, and you look like just the guy to do it all.
I hope so.
Marc, thanks. That's all we've got time for now.